I'm Seren Waverly, the daughter no one expected anything from, the one who was always too serious, too quiet, too invisible to fail or succeed. I never planned on making a statement at my sister's wedding. In fact, I nearly declined the invitation altogether. But when your mother calls and says, "It's Lyra's big day," at least show up looking decent. You don't really get to say no. So I did what I always do. I showed up, polished but muted, dignified but non-threatening, just enough to blend in, not enough to cause a stir. My navy dress was classic, understated, my heels soft-stepping, my smile quieter than the chandeliers overhead. I knew exactly how to navigate this kind of evening, stay near the edges, speak only when spoken to, and above all, never overshadow the golden child. I thought I could get through it. One evening of fake smiles and being reminded how small I still was in their eyes. I thought I could endure it, like I had every holiday dinner, every family photo, every backhanded comment for the last 20 years. But what I didn't plan for was being recognized, not as the disappointment, not as the older sister still finding her way, but as the woman whose silence had built an empire. And that moment, it didn't just change the room, it changed everything. The Grand Andel Hotel was exactly what I expected from my sister. Excessive, over-curated, and thirsty for attention. Crystal chandeliers glittered above like frozen daggers, casting their judgmental light over towering floral arrangements and hand-calligraphed place cards. Everything screamed luxury. But none of it surprised me. Lyra had always treated appearances like currency, and tonight, she was richer than ever. I arrived just past 7, precisely late enough to avoid the awkward family photo ops, but early enough not to offend my mother. She found me before I even took my first sip of champagne. "There you are," she snapped, the sharp edge of her tone concealed beneath a brittle smile. Her dress was tailored to perfection, too perfect, like everything else she touched. "Why are you hiding by the coat check?" "Just taking it all in," I replied smoothly, offering a tight smile. Her eyes drifted down my outfit, pausing at the modest neckline, then the shoes. "You look fine," she said, which in my mother's lexicon was damning with faint praise. "But you could have chosen something more polished. This is a high-profile wedding, Seren, not one of your little office mixers." Little office mixers. She said it with the same dismissive wave she used on flies. I'd chaired a billion-dollar acquisition meeting just 3 days ago, but of course, in this family, anything short of a wedding or a baby shower didn't count as an achievement. I nodded, as I always had. She turned away before I could speak, scanning the room for someone more valuable to talk to. She never asked about my work. She never had. I stood near the marble pillars, a quiet part of the architecture, the place I'd always occupied, seen but not important, included but never considered. And then, as if summoned by the universe to complete the performance, Lyra made her grand entrance. She floated in like a swan through a sea of sycophants, radiant in her bespoke gown, arm in arm with her new husband, Declan, the heir to a family-run tech dynasty. Her smile was the kind that didn't reach the eyes, the kind that needed an audience. "Seren!" she called, as if we were old friends, rather than years deep into a cold war of subtle sabotage. I braced myself. She stopped 2 steps away, lifting her champagne flute like a prop. "Still lurking in corners at parties?" she said, loudly enough to catch the attention of the nearby crowd. I kept my voice neutral. "Only the ones worth attending." Declan chuckled, assuming it was all in good fun. "She told me you work at that... What was it? Rainbow Consulting?" "Aurora," I corrected, gently but firmly. Lyra waved her hand with mock apology. Right. The boutique one, still helping small businesses and doing freelance things?" "It keeps me busy," I said, my tone perfectly even. She leaned closer. "You know, Mom and Dad were really worried about you for a while. No ring, no real career, but you're still trying. Independence counts for something. Even if it doesn't pay much." The comment bounced off me. Not because it didn't sting, because I'd been inoculated over the years. Back in school, I was the one who earned honors, scholarships, internships. Lyra? She barely graduated. But charm is a kind of currency too. And she spent it well. Dad made a few calls. A family friend pulled strings. Lyra landed at Arvintech as an entry-level analyst and climbed the ranks fast. Not because she was the best, because the path was paved. Me? I was told to be realistic, to manage expectations, to stay safe. So I did what no one expected. I built my own path. In silence, in shadow. Lyra clinked her glass against mine, lips curled. Well, cheers to you, big sis. May your little company bring you happiness, if not wealth. I raised my glass and smiled back. Oh, it has, I said. More than you know. Because what they didn't know was everything. As the evening unfolded, the ballroom pulsed with energy. Expensive laughter, staged toasts, and the low hum of strategic networking disguised as celebration. I remained close to the perimeter, sipping my second glass of champagne, watching Lyra navigate her crowd like a practiced politician. She was glowing, not from love, from power. This was her crowning moment, and she'd orchestrated it to perfection. Until she made an announcement. A soft clink of silver against glass silenced the room. She stood near the jazz band's platform, her silhouette luminous under the chandeliers. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, she said, her smile rehearsed and photogenic. This day means everything to me and Declan, of course, but it's also special because someone very important is joining us shortly. She paused. Richard Carr, the CEO of Arvintech, will be arriving in just a few minutes. A collective gasp and murmurs followed. Carr never attended employee functions, but Lyra wore her faux humility like a sash. I guess I'm not just any employee. I didn't need to guess. I already knew. Richard Carr had been trying to secure a face-to-face meeting with the CEO of Aurora Consulting for the past 3 months. His board had sent over proposals, partnership drafts, and multiple urgent requests. I'd read every one of them, and ignored them, strategically. Let them wait, let them sweat. Because I don't chase power, I attract it. And tonight, Richard Carr would finally meet the woman he'd been chasing, all while standing under a crystal chandelier at someone else's wedding. The double doors swung open with ceremonial timing. The room hushed as if cued by an invisible conductor. Richard Carr entered like a storm in a tailored suit, tall, silver-haired, calm. He scanned the room once. His eyes passed over Lyra, over Declan, over the crowd, and then they locked on me. For a beat, there was nothing. Then recognition flickered. Surprise. And finally, respect. He cut straight across the room, bypassing the bridal table entirely. Miss Waverly, he said, extending his hand. I didn't expect to see you here. Dead silence. My champagne glass paused mid-air. Across the room, my mother's brows furrowed. Declan leaned into Lyra, whispering something confused. Lyra's smile froze on her face. I took his hand with poised indifference. Mr. Carr, it's good to see you. He smiled wider. If I had known you'd be here, I would have delivered our proposal in person. We've been hoping to get on your calendar for weeks. By now, every conversation in the room had died. Every head had turned. Lyra took a step forward, confusion dawning into dread. Wait. You two know each other? Richard turned, finally acknowledging the bride. Oh, you must be the one from Arvintech. Lyra, was it? She nodded, eyes flicking between us. Didn't you tell me your sister runs Aurora? He asked, genuinely puzzled. Lyra blinked. What? No, she runs some consulting thing, I think. Something small. He frowned slightly. Aurora Consulting isn't small, Miss Waverly. It's a market leader. We've been exploring a merger for months. My mother gasped. My father dropped his fork. Declan stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I turned to them, still calm. It started small, out of a shared office in Queens, actually. 12 years ago. Now we advise over half the Fortune 500. Richard nodded proudly. Her team is top tier. We need Aurora. Arvintech's financial model isn't sustainable without restructuring. Lyra's voice cracked. Merger? What merger? I met her eyes, letting the weight settle. Aurora has been in talks to acquire Arvintech since late last quarter. It's nearing the final phase. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I tilted my head. No one told you? Huh? My voice wasn't cruel, but it didn't need to be. Truth, when delivered at the right moment, cuts sharper than spite. Why didn't anyone tell me? She whispered. Maybe, I said, because you never asked. The crowd wasn't whispering anymore. They were gawking. Phones hovered midair. My parents sat frozen, mouths open, eyes darting between me and the man who just confirmed everything. The spotlight Lyra worshipped had shifted, and it was now aimed where it always should have been. On me. The velvet lounge off the main ballroom was meant to be a retreat for the bridal party, a quiet place for touch-ups and nerves. But that night, it became a battleground. Lyra, Declan, my parents, and I stood beneath the dim sconces and silk-draped walls. No audience this time. Just 4 people, and years of unspoken hierarchy unraveling by the second. You couldn't wait, could you? Lyra snapped, stepping toward me. Her makeup was flawless, but her voice was cracking. You just had to ruin my wedding. I didn't ruin anything, I said evenly. I didn't make Carr show up. That was your performance. You could have warned me. I arched a brow. Why? So you could tell him not to shake my hand? Her eyes flashed. You made me look like an idiot. No, I said. You did that, by assuming I was still beneath you. My mother stepped in. Girls, enough. This isn't the time. Isn't it? I turned to face her fully. You've spent years telling me what's appropriate. When to speak, what to wear, what dreams were worth having. Now you're embarrassed because the one you all ignored turned out to matter? She flinched. My father cleared his throat, like he always did when he didn't know what else to offer. Seren, honey. We didn't know. You never told us. No, I said. You never asked. That landed harder than I expected. My mother's lip trembled, but I wasn't done. Do you remember my senior year of college? I continued. When I interned at that startup in Queens and said I wanted to try building something, you told me to be careful, that it sounded unstable. You begged me to take the offer from that corporate bank. Because we were worried, she said quietly. No, I said, colder now. Because you didn't believe I could make it, but you believed in her. I gestured toward Lyra. You co-signed her Manhattan lease. You paid for her MBA out of the family account, money I contributed to from my scholarship refunds and summer jobs. My father looked ashamed. We always meant to pay you back. You never did. My voice had dropped to a whisper, the kind that doesn't ask for pity, only recognition. You thought I was disposable, smart, sure, but not impressive, not the type to make things happen. I turned back to Lyra. And you? Ever wonder why I never talked about work? Because you weren't listening. You were too busy playing Golden Girl while I was grinding through 80-hour weeks, hiring staff, pitching clients, building something no one handed me. She folded her arms. So what? Now you think you're better than us? No, I said softly. I know I am, and I've known for a long time. Declan looked like he wanted to evaporate. My mother sat down on the edge of a chaise, her posture folding in on itself. We made mistakes, she whispered. But we were trying to protect you. The business world is cruel, especially for women. And yet, here I am, I said, voice sharp. Standing, thriving, running the company that's about to rescue your precious Arvintech from collapse. Lyra looked like the air had been knocked out of her. Rescue? You think this merger is some cute collaboration? I asked. Richard Carr doesn't collaborate when his numbers are bleeding red. He begged us. I just gave him enough rope to feel like it was his idea. My father stood again, more defensive now. You're talking about acquiring the company where your sister works. What happens to her? That depends entirely on her, I said. And whether she's capable of standing without a hand up. Lyra blinked, eyes glassy now. So this is it? Revenge? I took a slow breath. No, this is accountability. She sank into a chair, shoulders slumped. The glow was gone. The golden girl was no longer gilded, just a sister sitting in the ruins of her assumptions. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I simply stood taller than I ever had in their presence. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't the dutiful daughter or the afterthought. I was the force they never saw coming. 2 weeks later, I stood before the glass doors of Arvintech's headquarters, watching my own reflection blur into the skyline. The building had always symbolized prestige in my family. Where Lyra worked, where success was measured in floor numbers and corner offices. Now it was mine to restructure. I walked in without fanfare, dressed in a tailored black suit, heels that clicked with intent, and the quiet gravity of someone who no longer needed to prove anything. The receptionist recognized me before I gave my name. Her eyes widened, but she didn't speak. She didn't need to. Everyone in this building had read the press release. The boardroom was already full when I arrived. 12 seats, 12 executives who'd spent the last month scrambling to prepare for what they called a strategic acquisition. Richard Carr stood when I entered. "Miss Waverly," he greeted, gesturing to the chair beside him. I nodded, took my seat, and laid out my notes. "In the past quarter," I began, "Aurora has conducted a full review of Arvintech, its finances, structure, leadership, and risks." I looked up. Every eye was on me. "We've come to a conclusion. Arvintech has potential, but it's been managed by legacy, not merit. That ends today." A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. "Going forward, leadership roles will be reassigned based on competence, not last names. Promotions will come from within. Redundant positions will be eliminated." "This isn't punishment," I added. "This is correction." From the corner of my eye, I saw movement through the glass wall. Lyra, my father, my mother, watching silently. Lyra looked different, simpler, real. I continued. "Departmental reorg begins next quarter. All decisions will go through Aurora oversight." Richard leaned over. "You're more ruthless than I imagined." "Not ruthless," I replied. "Just clear-eyed." He smiled. "And your sister?" "She'll receive an offer. Entry-level, she can earn her way up." Through the glass, Lyra lowered her gaze. That afternoon, we sent out contracts, one to Lyra, one to my father, one to my mother. No one responded. Until the third day, Lyra arrived in flats, no makeup, hair pulled back. She held the contract. "Do you mean it?" she asked. "Entry-level?" "Yes. Everyone earns their place at Aurora." "I don't know if I can do that." "Then don't," I said. "You have a choice." She paused. "I want to try." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. Later, my parents came. No apologies, just truth. My mother said, "We were wrong, about you." I said nothing, because silence now was enough. That night, long after the last meeting ended and the final contract was returned, I sat alone in my office. The city buzzed beyond the glass, skyscrapers blinking like silent applause. But I didn't need it. Applause was for performers. I was an architect. I reached into the drawer on my right and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was my grandmother's locket, the one she gave me the day I left college with no job, no connections, just the quiet conviction that I wasn't wrong for wanting more. I opened it gently. The note inside was creased but intact. Her handwriting was sharp, elegant. "Success isn't about who believes in you at the end. It's about who you believed in at the start, yourself." At 23, that message was all I had. I was broke, underestimated, and exhausted. But I wasn't broken, because deep down, I had never doubted that I could build something real, something mine. Now people believed. They saw the headlines, the power suits, the conference keynotes. But none of that was the victory. The victory was that I didn't need their belief to get here. That was the part they never understood. People talk about revenge like it's fire, fast, loud, explosive. But my revenge was something else. It was precision, patience, poise. It was the art of being underestimated long enough to make your move without noise. The kind of silence that doesn't surrender, It strategizes. I didn't storm into that ballroom to make a scene. I showed up to do what I always do: observe, calculate, adapt. And when the spotlight finally turned toward me, I didn't flinch. I stepped into it, because I had built myself for that moment. Quietly, deliberately, relentlessly. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told you're not enough, not strong enough, not smart enough, or just not seen, hear me now. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need validation to be valuable. And you don't need permission to become powerful. Let your work be your response. Let your excellence be your rebellion. Let your silence be your storm. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one they forgot to count.